Thanks everyone so much for tuning in. I have the great pleasure of having Bernadette Smith here with us today, MLA for Point Douglas in Manitoba. And Bernadette, if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself and what got you into politics.
So I'm Anishinaabe from Winnipeg. My family's from Duck Bay. Grew up, living in poverty most of my life, single parent. Ended up being pregnant at 16, quit school, went back when I was 23, became a youth care worker, ended up in education as a teacher, later as a principal. And then I was someone who was on the steps of the legislature, actually rallying and protesting and lobbying in ministers' offices for change. I have a sister who's been missing since July 24th of 2008. So I've done a lot of work around, creating awareness, also change, not only provincially, but federally as well, and lobbying, MPs and the Prime Minister to really call a national action plan. So in 2010, we garnered 50,000 signatures, sent those to Parliament, and later on we were able to get an inquiry, which wasn't what we wanted, because we knew that the money that would be spent into an inquiry would just result in a report that you might get some recommendations that have some tangible actions behind them, but thus far we've seen none. So we kind of knew that was going to happen, and we projected that that money could have been used here and now to support families and to help stop the violence from happening and save some lives. So I've been working a lot on that, and that work, I started a coalition for families of missing and murdered women in Manitoba. And I didn't want to make it Indigenous specific, so it's just women in Manitoba, because at the time my sister went missing, there was a lot of othering happening. So my sister worked the street, she had a criminal record, she lived in the north end of the city. She was Indigenous, she was a woman. So all of those things played a role, and we really wanted to help people see that it's not just, an Indigenous issue or a woman's issue, that it's a human issue, and that regardless of, what someone is doing in their life, that, no one has the right to take their life or take their choice to live, or, in my sister's case, really, her disappearance. And just helped support families through. We were noticing that a lot of families weren't taking care of themselves, so we ended up having a gathering for the weekend, which the government thankfully took up, and it's still been going on now. It's almost, I think this would have been their 12th year, maybe even 13. Yeah, 12th year, because we held the first one. And then through that work, we created a toolkit for families of missing and at-risk persons. So it really walks you through, how to navigate when someone goes missing, or if they're, at risk to go missing. Because when we experienced that ourselves, we were just given an instant number and sent on our way. And in 2013, Tina Fontaine, as garnered national attention. And we have the Red River here, and we had been searching for our sister on land for a long, long time, and we're unsuccessful. And when her body turned up, we tried to put pressure on the police to search the Red River, and so search it throughout the year, not just when someone goes missing. And they were like, well, we need evidence to search. So we decided as a grassroots group that we would, start that. And it was another family member and I. His name's Kyle Keymatch, and his sister is Amber Guy Bosch, and she's someone I worked with as a young person. And him and I connected, and he said, let's do it. So we didn't have a boat. We had no idea what we were doing. And we called a couple of community meetings, and we had about 25 people show up and support us. And that's just kind of how we started, and we've been doing it ever since. Our coalition is a grassroots. We're not incorporated. It's just run by family members, volunteers, and that's what Drag the Red as well. It's we don't get any funding for any of this from anywhere. All of the work that we do is we do fundraisers, or we kick in our own funds, or just community is so beautiful in coming together and supporting, and really wanting to help and do something to support MMIW2S families. So yeah, that's a bit about me. I became a politician. This is my second term, so I've been politicking now in the legislature for 4 years now. But as an Indigenous person, we're born political, and we're always trying to make room and make life better for the next generation. So been spending my life doing that, and I've been enjoying doing that. I'm married. I have 3 kids. So I have 2 older boys. My son's going to be 30. My other one's going to be 28. And then I had a daughter who's 18. So kind of, my goodness, 10 years later. And 2 granddaughters. And then I have a step granddaughter and a step grandson. And yesterday we just adopted a puppy, 5 weeks old.
That's so cute.
Yeah. So just doing what I can to help the next generation, and really create awareness, and help people get involved that want to be involved in helping create change.
Yeah, your work, when I first heard about this, like I felt that this should be something across Canada, specifically to the Child and Family Services Act, and using poverty as a reason to steal children from their families that's colonial violence for hundreds of years that we've seen. And so, with your lead on that, I don't know, I was just like so amazed that you could put that through and really make it happen, so that to keep families together and to have that support for people, to kind of start cutting that cycle of violence. Colonial violence.
Yeah. And Bill 223 was, was historical, of course, in terms of making sure that supports are there for families that need it. If you don't have food, that's not a grounds to apprehend your kids.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, what can we do to help, support? Can we get you some groceries? Or, if a mom's having a tough time, often moms are single moms, right? Or even single dads doing it on their own. And we need breaks sometimes. And, it's tough when you have, a teenager. Like I was a teenager, and I was in care, and my mom was a good mom, but she, I was just a very dominant young girl that had it in her head that she was going to do what she was going to do. And my mom did everything she could to, help and support me. And ultimately I ended up going into care. So, and it was only because I went into care that my mom got some support, unfortunately. But when I came home, that care and support continued. So, she was given respite. We had a parent support worker that worked with her family. So those types of things, should be put in place. We should be working towards doing everything humanly possible to keep families together instead of, tearing them apart. And we see, over incarceration rates, we see, high suicide rates, we see, lots of deaths, murders, missing, homelessness. And that's a direct correlation from kids being in care and the damage, the lifelong damage that's caused through that. And, it's a no-brainer when you think about it. Like, how do we, and we're still working through that. Like it hasn't stopped. There's still kids being apprehended, families still being torn apart because of poverty. And, we're still working to change the system, and the system needs a total revamp. Like it's recently we just got birth alerts lifted in the province, and I brought that bill forward too, and they didn't support it, and they ended up doing it by themselves, as government, which is great. It's done, it's good. But, I brought that bill forward 2 years ago, and we could have had, 2 years of no birth alerts, or, working towards keeping those families together. So still lots of work to do around, that, lots of system work to do.
Right. Yeah. No, just thank you for what you have been doing because that's amazing. And I guess specifically with Drag the Red, like that initiative, what sort of challenges have come up for you, either with authority or just trying to do, this community work?
Yeah, in the beginning, it was a very adversarial relationship with the police because it was like, they felt like we were making them look bad, where it was like, well, that's not our intent. Our intent is really to, give families hope that somebody's doing something,
Hmm.
to support families, and really to help community understand that this is, a whole of community, initiative that everyone needs to be a part of. And, we've come to a place with the police where the police will actually call us now and tell us, someone's gone into the river. Can you, come and assist us?
Hmm.
So, which is good. And we keep open communication with each other, in terms of finding, and locating stuff. In the beginning, we would wait a whole day for the police to come. And that was very frustrating because, it's a crime scene possibly, and you don't want to leave that. And, somebody to come along and maybe they know that somebody's come upon that and maybe go and take the evidence.
Hmm.
We've had quite a few of those, but now they come, within a 2 hour time frame. They'll ask us to borrow some of our equipment as well
Mm.
sometimes. Now though, they know what our equipment looks like, so they've made their equipment, pretty much the same as our equipment in terms of dragging the bottom of the river. And it's basically a 3.5 to 4 foot square tube.
Okay.
And it has four lengths of cable on it that are about 3 feet long, 3 to 4 feet long. And at the end of those cable, we have 12-inch hooks that we have to weld together. So
Oh,
they
wow.
don't come as a quad. So we have
Hmm.
to weld all four of those together. We have to have the bars made. So it's probably about $110. We priced it out between materials and labor.
Right.
My husband was a welder. Unfortunately, he's been unable to weld for the last 2.5 years. So we've had other welders step up and make the equipment for us. Some
Hmm.
we've had to pay.
Yeah.
Financial is always a challenge for us. And we used to do a lot of it on our own when my husband was working. We'd just be like, oh, we need material. We'd go buy it. Oh, we need, gas in the boat. We'd put it in, no worries.
Right.
So, but now community has really stepped up. A lot of young people are doing fundraisers and stuff. And, whether they're selling, red dress earrings or, doing bake sales, or their school, does a whole school initiative. Like many, you know, people have really filled that financial burden that we often face doing this
Hmm.
work, because
Hmm.
when you don't get any funding, right, or any support. We've also had a really amazing partnership with Unifor, which is the biggest union in Canada. They have over 300,000 employees. So they actually built us a boat. So this year, we're going to be unveiling that boat, and it's a commercial fisher boat.
Oh,
And
right
we've
on.
off,
Okay.
yeah, and that's been like a huge challenge for us. Is like when our boats break down.
Yeah.
We had a boat breakdown 2 years ago, and it cost $10,000 to fix, and we were like, we
Mm.
struggled with fixing it. And the reason we did fix it was because there was this young girl, her name is Kayleen McKay, and her uncle went into the Red River. He was having some, mental health issues, and he essentially committed suicide.
Mm.
And the police were called out. And the police here, they search for about 4 to 6 hours, and then they'll, do a scan of the river, but they don't drag. They don't have the divers out anytime past 4 to 6 hours.
Mm.
So the family called us, and we recovered his body. And the cousin was really close with him. She was 16 at the time. So she was a runner, and she ended up doing a run from her community, which is a community that my family's from, Duck Bay, which is about 600 kilometers from Winnipeg. And she raised $16,000.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
she bought a boat, and she named the boat after her uncle or her cousin Sean, the one who
Wow.
committed suicide. So that was a
Hmm.
boat that broke down, and we were like, we can't let Sean, you know, we can't let go of Sean. Like, it means a lot, meant a lot to the community. It means a lot to her family. And so we ended up fundraising, and families, people came together, and we raised the $10,000, and we got the boat
Wow.
fixed. And so
That's
that's going to
amazing.
be our
Yeah.
backup boat. And now we have this reliable boat that's, they've paid $60,000 for this boat for us to do this work. And it's going to have winches on it, and
Oh, amazing.
spotlights, and enough room for, everybody to be on the boat that wants to come and help drag in a safe
Hmm.
manner.
Hmm. Wow. Like it's you hear the stories, and and some people directly involved with family members, and you talked about the challenges, but at the same time it just sounds like there's a lot of community support that's involved in this. And like, I think I read somewhere that you have like an archaeologist that that you talk to about, like, if there are any bones that you find, and it's really this community support network.
Yeah, we have actually a team of forensic anthropologists. So there's some from the University of Winnipeg, University of Manitoba, and the University of Brandon.
Mm.
And I think it was our second year they came on board. And, we were searching and not really searching effectively, because we were doing ground searches at the time as well. And Bear Clan had just started up. So they
Mhm.
weren't, we weren't in partnership yet. Now we're in partnership with Bear Clan and Mama Bear Clan. So if we need ground search, they'll come and do the ground part. We just focus on the water now.
Right.
But these anthropologists come out and train all of our volunteers every year, whether it's, how to search effectively, how to cordon off a possible, site where, someone's been murdered, to make sure that, it's not compromised. They help us to identify bones. I remember when I first took the training, I picked up, they give you this tray of things that some you can readily identify as a bone or a
Right.
stick or a piece of wood. And I picked up this piece of wood, and I thought it was a bone. Like, it looked exactly like a
Mm.
bone. Like, oh no, that's a piece of wood. So really, how to identify, because bones, they, with age, change
Mhm.
color and change shape. So they lose the calcium. So yeah, just amazing. So we have about 6 to 8 anthropologists that come out every year, and that
Mm.
do a whole day training. So the first part is in class at the university, and then the second half is in the field. So we actually go onto the land, and they plant some different things, and you have to find them.
Right.
So you're searching arms part lengths away from each other, and making sure that you're in a straight line. Like, all of these things that we didn't know, we were like scattered all over, and we didn't know how to, we did find a lot of things, and we would just pick them up, put them in, our pocket, or like, we weren't really securing, effectively possible, um, clues that could be used in investigations. We were just like, yeah, so
Mm.
we could have been compromising them. So yeah, lots of good partnerships, lots of people that aren't directly impacted. And you talked about that, like, often families will have people that know them that
Mhm.
help do this work, but there's so many people that are um, involved that aren't directly impacted, that just want to, help, help families, help community, and help really stop the violence, and stop the deaths, and stop the disappearances.
Mhm. So what would you suggest? I guess this is a two-parter of how people can support Drag the Red, very specifically, and then sort of what can we be doing better as a country, because it is a systemic issue. What can we do also to support?
Well, I think first of all, people need to recognize it as a human issue that, everyone is impacted, whether they directly know that family or that person, that it could happen to anyone. And I always tell people to get involved before it happens to you or happens to someone you know. And the way I tell people to get involved is that, we can all be doing something to help one another, whether that's, stopping maybe some of the behaviors that you have, whether that's lateral violence or, really closing yourself off to, supporting or helping others or turning a blind eye to something that isn't right,
Mm-hmm.
right? And helping to, you know, um, just helping that person, whoever is experiencing maybe violence. And I also have been working towards, helping the partner who's the violent offender too, to
Mm-hmm.
get help and support, because I have two kids from a previous relationship, and my partner was violent. He was an alcoholic, and often it was myself who got help. My kids didn't get help. Like, it was
Right.
me as the victim. But I would always go back to my partner because that was my children's dad, and I
Mm-hmm.
loved him. I didn't love being abused. And ultimately, we split up, and he went on to abuse someone else. And we need to stop that behavior. And the only way we're going to stop that behavior is by helping, the perpetrator to also get the help and support that they need.
Mm-hmm.
And kids too, because kids are growing up watching that and thinking that it's okay and it's normalized. And
Yes.
it's a behavior that they could develop and become an abuser themselves. So how do we stop that cycle? So speaking out about those types of things, and lobbying the government, and
Mm-hmm.
writing letters, and volunteering at different organizations that offer these types of supports, because often they're underfunded and they're understaffed, and they need support from community. And for us, when people aren't directly in our community, the way that they can best help us is financially.
Right.
Whether even it's $5 or $10, like I always tell people, no amount is too small,
Mm-hmm.
because $5 in that boat, you have 5 people, that's an hour of searching that river.
Okay.
And so $70 a day is usually what we put into a boat,
Mm-hmm.
and that's about 5 hours of searching in one day. And we usually search a good 5 hours. We were doing 7 days a week. We've scaled back just because it's I'm the lead organizer, so I have to organize everything.
Right.
And sometimes we don't have enough dragger or enough people to be on the boat. And usually we have 2 draggers, someone who's driving the boat, and then someone who's, on either side of the boat doing a scan of the banks or in the river. So usually it's about 5 people on the boat. And we've been very fortunate that we've been able to engage a lot of our youth.
Mm-hmm.
So we have quite a few. They're usually 15 and over, and they have to come with an adult. Um, and we have a group called Action Therapists. They're known as OPK in Manitoba. And one of their youth that they work with, and they're action therapists. Some of them are social workers. Some are have psychologist degrees, and they do this as an aside kind of thing to work with youth in the community that are either exiting the justice system or at risk to go into the justice system or be in a gang.
Mm-hmm.
So one of these youth ended up drowning in the river, and it was our Drag the Red who recovered his body. So this was 3.5 years ago. And ever since then, all of those action therapists every year have volunteered on our boat, and they've brought youth to come and volunteer. So, trying to get other people engaged. And I think what you're doing, creating awareness around the issue and letting people know that, there's things that they could be doing in their own community. We often get asked to go to different communities, but we don't have the capacity to travel outside of Winnipeg. We don't know, the lakes.
Right.
We know the river and the current pretty well, and we know, where there's gas lines in our river and things like that. So we mapped the whole river. We've become pretty intimate with it. So, people can do that in their own community and start initiatives like Drag the Red and,
Right.
Bear Clan even, that's huge in our community. They're a group of volunteers that, go out into the community and have got to know the community members and have a lot of respect, and people call them often before they call the police, and then Bear Clan
Safer.
will assess, yeah,
Safer,
they'll
yeah.
assess the situation and they might call the police and ask for some, support. But yeah, things like that, and not, turning a blind eye is the biggest, issue I see. Like people going, you know, that's never going to happen to me. I don't do drugs or whatever. We all know somebody that we love that does drugs.
Yep,
We
absolutely.
all, we all know somebody in our lives that have made a, wrong choice. I mean, that wrong choice could result in, anything happening. And so, yeah, just, being supportive and really,
and removing that stigma. That stigma of, they don't think about their own drug use. Like, yeah, I can come home, have a beer, no problem after work. But, this person out here, who I'm going to label as another, they shouldn't be doing drugs, or they shouldn't be drinking alcohol, or they, there's no perception of how, upper white middle class people actually partake in more drugs than people who live in poverty. So, but we don't, it's not equated in people's
behind closed doors often. So they're, yeah. And I think too about, just how we treat one another, right? And really, welcoming people in, even just a smile.
right.
Everyone has a story and everyone has a struggle. And, some of us carry more baggage than others. And, just recognizing that, we've all struggled in some shape or form, and that, to remember your struggle and how you can help others with their struggle.
Awesome. Bernadette, thank you so much for taking the time. I will be putting the information for Drag the Red and Bear Clan actually in the descriptions below. So thanks again. Thank you so much.
Yeah, for sure. And people can get a hold of us through our Facebook page. That's often how people will reach out to us and, ask how they can get involved. Or even, we often get people just across the country saying, we appreciate the work you're doing. And, our volunteers appreciate hearing that as well, because often it's, it's tough work, because you never know what you're going to pull up. Like if it's going to be a body, right? Or it's going to be, some potential evidence that you pull up that's going to solve a case. Like it's very emotional work. And every year we start with a feast and a pipe ceremony, and we end with a feast and a pipe ceremony, and we have sharing circles, so that what we the work that we've done, that we're not carrying that we're letting that go, that we're recognizing that that's not ours to carry, that we're doing the work, we're just helpers. Right. So thank you for having me. I really appreciate you creating awareness around this, and certainly we're always looking for support from others in helping to create awareness around this issue.
Amazing. Thank you so much.